What's happening, Wolfpack? Welcome back to the den. I am your Dynasty strategos, your guide, your Sherpa in this quest for Dynasty domination. We are back again with another episode of Market Watch Mondays. Your boy's back. It's Saturday. We're recording Saturday because this is going to be another strategy prep session. So don't really need to watch the games to do that. That's the beauty of having your own show, man. You do whatever the fuck you want. And, I love doing strategy stuff. And it seems like you guys are enjoying that type of content. So that's the path that we're headed. You got Nick and we got our main channel and the main film to talk about all the weekly stuff. So we got you covered there. But for me, man, we're always thinking long term. We're thinking about this from an investor's lens. We're trying to be the wolves on these streets, man. You don't want to be sheep. Don't be followers. Be leaders. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to lead you guys to the goddamn promised land. And I got a lot of stuff I want to cover today. Okay. So this might be a bit of a long one. So bear with me. But before we get to anything, man, you guys know what time it is. Hit that intro, baby.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. This week on the dock, I got a lot to cover, right? But first thing I want to talk about is ZeroRB. I just want to cover this really quickly. And, I had some back and forth on Twitter, and I saw some guy named Davis Maddock. I guess he's like a ZeroRB truther or whatever he is. I mean, he tweeted something to the degree of like robust RB was like the worst strategy ever this year because of how good the mid-level wide receivers are performing. And then like I saw a tweet and it just like set me off. I was like, that's literally the exact opposite of what you're trying to say. So I want to cover ZeroRB a little bit because I know, there's a lot of smart people out there that use it. I mean, some of the smartest people I know definitely use it. So it definitely works, right? It's a strategy that's viable. But my problem is like I've seen way too many ZeroRB victory laps this season, right? And a lot of it has to do with injury, right? And it's been a brutal injury, right? We lost Sacrum Barkley for the season. We lost CMC, came back for a game, lost him again. We lost Miles Sanders for a bunch of games. We lost Austin Eckler. We lost Nick Chubb. So like, half of your top 12 running backs were basically gone this season. So, and every season there's injuries, but that was like a bit of an that was a bit of an irregularity, right? So I just hate seeing all the ZeroRB victory laps because at the end of the day, man, what it comes down to is your risk tolerance, right? I don't think anyone can argue this. Running backs have a higher chance of getting injured than wide receivers. That is true. A factual statement, right? But in fantasy, we care about being the 99th percentile. What do I mean by that? We like because most leagues are very top heavyweighted in terms of their prize pool, like most of the money goes to first, second, third. You want to play for the top end outcome. You don't want to really play it safe. And to me, ZeroRB has always been a play it safe type of thing where you bank on other players to get hurt, you bank on other teams to get injured to take advantage and get the lead, right? But what happens when someone doesn't get injured? What happens when CMC does what he did last year? What happens when Alvin Kamara does what he did this year? What happens when you get Aaron Jones balling out? What happens if Miles Sanders doesn't get hurt? What happens if Austin Eckler doesn't get hurt? Would have been a top 5 RB, right? You could have realistically opened your draft with Dalvin Cook and Austin Eckler, which is exactly what I did in a lot of leagues, right? So it all comes down to injuries. And like this year's been a stinky year for injuries, right? And it's for everyone, not just running backs, wide receivers. Michael Thomas has played one game, has given you points, right? Devontae Adams missed games. Kenny Galladay's missed games. Chris Godwin missed a bunch of games. These are all guys that you were drafting basically in those top rounds. So that's why I don't really get the whole victory lap thing. My philosophy is I don't really go into a draft with a specific strategy in mind most of the time, right? Like I don't really go in and say, hey, I'm gonna not draft running backs, or hey, I'm not gonna not draft wide receivers, because like to me, ZeroRB, robust RB, whatever strategy you want to say, like you should just be flexible, man. Like my life motto and my motto when it comes to fantasy is from my hero, Bruce Lee. And he just says, be water. You got to be water. You got to be flexible and take the draft as it comes to you. If I'm sitting there, right, and I open up the draft with Dalvin Cook and Austin Eckler falls me in the second, I'm going to draft him, right? But if Austin Eckler's gone and Miles Sanders is gone and a nice wide receiver staring me in the face, I'm going to go with him. If I'm sitting there in the third round or late second and Derrick Henry comes to me, right, I'm going to take him. Because, like, at the end of the day, we play to win, right? I fully recognize that drafting running backs is a higher risk of injury. And if they get injured, and if your first round, second round pick it's injured, you're probably fucked, right? It's really hard to come back from that. But I'm playing to win, right? I'm not playing to just make the playoffs. I'm not just playing to to just scrape by and get third place, second place every year. I'm always playing for first. And if I'm not playing for first, then technically in Dynasty, I'm trying to play for last. I'm trying to get a really good draft pick. So those are my two goals, right? I'm not, I guess, from that perspective, I'm a little bit different. That's why I'm more open to drafting running backs early. I'm more open to fading quarterbacks in Dynasty, because even in Superflex, in the early rounds, because I know people want to talk about longevity and playing it safe, and but like for me, I'm playing within the I'm each season I'm playing within that 1 to 2 year window, right? I'm not looking 5 years, 10 years ahead, because we can barely figure out what the hell is going on next week. So what makes you think you can predict what's going to happen in 3 years, right? And 3 years ago, Todd Gurley was the talk of the town, right? And now he's washed. And 3 years ago, like if there was like the quarterback landscape was totally different. We didn't have like Kyler Murray yet, right? So 3 to 5 years, when people are looking that far ahead, to me, it's a head scratcher, because this is one of the most unpredictable games available. So the fact that you think you can outgame the game is a little bit, you know, I would call it arrogant to me. But at the same time, like, I'm pretty confident in my ability. So I don't want to say, don't be confident and have a little swagger. But I think that's just like not really how I play. I don't think football is made to be played that way, right? I talk a lot about finance in my segments, and you know the stock market today is very, very, I would say, efficient, right? It captures all the information. Like, chances are, if you're an investor, right, and you're trying to like invest on a stock based on news you've read, that is already reflecting the price. That's what I mean by efficient. Like, all available information, for the most part, in mature markets like the US, is already captured in the stock market. So in that sense, that's when you start doing more what I call like intrinsic investing, which is like you try and determine the value on a long-term value on an asset, and you basically like buy and hold and wait till it gets there, right? Because the market is efficient enough, eventually it'll get there. But in fantasy football, the market is not at all efficient. It doesn't even capture all the available information, right? All this fantasy football barely even captures all the historical information. So never mind future projections and all this stuff. Like, I just think, like, in this type of market, there's so much gains to be had from volume trading. And I am a volume trader. Like, every year, it doesn't matter what roster I have, I'm always trading, because I'm trying to buck on trends and hit on trends in the next 1 to 2 years. And I do that every time. And that's why I always advocate for trading back. So in that type of world, I just think that, like, playing it safe and doing like zero RB or QB safe drafts is not really my approach. I totally understand, there's a lot of experienced guys out there, OGs and really successful dynasty players, that kind of do it differently than me. And I totally respect their view, but this is just my approach, right? And if you're following me along, and I'm putting out content nonstop on Twitter, on YouTube, you will also get insight into those trends. So that's why I think that short-term trading is actually very profitable in the dynasty space. You can buy high and still profit, like I've said in past episodes. So there's a lot to go there. And like I said, man, my mantra is this: be water and play to win. Those are the only two. Everything I do comes back to those two things. I'm playing for the 99th percentile every time. And to me, zero RB is a strategy that plays for the 80th percentile. That's not to say it's bad, right? Because sometimes you play for that percentile and few things buck your way, and a couple guys get injured, and you're looking at a championship run. But that's more like putting your future in someone else's hands. Whereas for me, I'm trying to take the future in my hands and just do as much as I can to win right now. So that's kind of my thoughts on zero RB. I don't think it's like a horrible strategy by any means. Like, I actually do zero RB drafts a lot, especially if you listen to me doing some of the rebuild stuff. I do tend to draft ZeroRB because I don't want running backs scoring points. But again, that kind of just tells you, like, if you have a winning mentality, you're trying to win, like, you should be trying to get as many of those points on your bench on your starting lineup as possible. And if you look at the running back performance so far, like 7 of the 12 running back ones currently today were drafted in the first 2 rounds, right? So if you faded running backs in those rounds, like, chances are you don't have a good running back core, and you can have a great wide receiver core, and this is a historic season for that, so you're probably still finding some success. But just know that that's not the norm, right? The wide receivers will not score like this again next season. It has to do with the short season, which I talked a little bit about last week. But just don't expect this to be the norm. And just honestly, if you're trying to win, you should be trying to go and running back. That's kind of my philosophy. I know not everyone agrees with it, and obviously there's a lot of zero RB truthers out there. So shout out to you guys for staying strong through all that. But for me, not really my thing. Other things I want to cover this episode, I want to talk a little bit about targets. Players to target if you are in a rebuild or thinking about a rebuild, or your team didn't go that well. What are some guys you should be going after right now? And 2, if you're on the flip side, if you're a contender, what are some of the assets you should be targeting to bolster your teams and really make that playoff push and set yourselves up, right? I talked a lot about this, I think 2 weeks ago as a contender. Like, do not rest on your laurels. Like, if you're undefeated or if you're ahead of the league, you should be trying to do more. I'm always trying to do more. Like, in teams where I'm undefeated, I'm still trying to add depth, and I'm still trying to trade for guys. I'm still using future assets to trade for guys because I want to keep extending that lead. Because how you screw yourself over is if you get the lead and you basically sit there and do nothing. You're like, okay, well, now I'm good, right? But Dynasty's not played like that, right? Because everyone else also has assets, right? And everyone else has future rookie picks. So if you're sitting there resting on your laurels, being like, yeah, look, I'm undefeated, whatever it is, blah 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 blah, but someone else is closing the gap on you, you kind of like start, you're putting yourself at risk of losing. Like, for me, I'm always trying to build depth before players get hurt. So it's always cheaper, like I say, it's always cheaper to pay a little bit of premium for the insurance than to pay for the catastrophic outcome after player injury, and everyone knows you need something, right? It's just like simple supply and demand, like economic principles. Like, if everyone knows you need something, they're going to charge you more for it. But if you're going out and shopping stuff before you need it, like, it's just going to cost you less. So I'm going to go through some players now. We'll start off with the rebuild side. And first on the list is someone that I've been acquiring like a demon, man. I've been out there. If you guys followed me on Twitter, you've probably seen a lot of my trades. But I've been acquiring like Sacrum Barkley as much as I can in rebuilding drafts. Rebuilding leagues and rebuilding teams, because I still really believe in the talent of Sacrum Barkley, and it seems like people are like starting to forget, right? I remember when he got injured, everyone was rushing to sell Sacrum Barkley for like Jonathan Taylor or Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and like everyone immediately moved them above his ranks. I still had Sacrum Barkley as my running back too the entire time. The only time I moved him was, I think I moved Alvin Kamara ahead of Sacrum Barkley because Kamara was balling out. I actually moved Alvin Kamara to RB1 when both CMC and Sacrum Barkley were injured, just because of what he was able to do with Michael Thomas. But Sacrum Barkley is still a tier 1 running back. He is still miles ahead of Jonathan Taylor, miles ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like, people throw around the term generational way too much. Like, I love JT, right? JT was like my guy. He was my running back 1. And I thought he was going to be an incredible talent. He's been pretty disappointing so far, but I never thought he was generational, right? Because you cannot be a generational player and get drafted in the second round and have 32 teams, most of them pass on you twice. You can't be generational when you're like that. Sacrum Barkley is a generational talent because he comes around every once in a while. And I truly believe that when it's all said and done, he might be one of the best to ever do it, right? So people forgot about talent because he's injured. The Giants suck, but the Giants have always sucked, right? So I'm not really worried about that. But Sacrum Barkley is a great great pass catcher, right, out of the backfield. He is a home run hitter on every single touch. So to me, like, this is a great way to store value and buy low on someone, because he has never been more attainable than he is now. And I got like, I think 4 or 5 shares of Sacrum Barkley. I had to trade him away in one because I was contending, and I traded him plus like a 2.01 pick for Alvin Kamara. But short of that, I've mostly been buying. And some of the deals I've done were, I think early on, before like Dak went down, or maybe just after Dak went down, I traded Zeke for like Sacrum Barkley plus a second. I gave up like a Mo Alley Cox or something, like a tight end. So big W on that one, because I've always had Barkley ahead of Zeke. I don't think Zeke is that great. And he's proven that he's not that great without Dak Prescott. So that's one deal I've done. Another one, I actually gave up Alvin Kamara in a league where I'm not contending for Sacrum Barkley plus a second round pick. So these are like the types of deals that you can easily get done for Sacrum Barkley. And I think he should be your top target as a rebuilder because, one, it keeps points off your bench, right? But two, he is a workhorse stud running back. And when he comes back, he is going to show everyone exactly what he is. I'm not that worried about his injury. I understand it was a pretty awful one between MCL and ACL both getting torn, but we've seen Adrian Peterson come back from it. I think modern sports medicine is actually pretty wild. So I fully expect Sacrum Barkley to come back and ball. If not early on next year, by midseason next year, he's going to go back to the league winner that he always was. So you would have been happy to cash in on the buy low opportunity on him. Now he's still only 23 years old, so he's got years left, man. So if you're in a rebuilding team, you should definitely going to inquire about Sacrum Barkley. But what I wouldn't do if you're a rebuilding team is go and pay like a bunch of firsts for him, right? because if you're a rebuilding team, chances are you need more depth. So you don't really want to consolidate all of that into Saquon Barkley, and also those first round picks will guarantee to increase in value over the next year leading up to the draft. So if anything, you could probably acquire Saquon Barkley for less than 3 first, like come draft time. So if you're trying to use draft picks, acquire them then. But I'm saying use players. So if you got like Derrick Henry's, if you got Dalvin Cook, that's another one. I traded Dalvin Cook straight up for Saquon Barkley actually in a rebuilding team just to take those points off my board, and I view them as pretty equal. Even though Cook is absolutely balling, I still view them as pretty equal assets going forward. And Saquon Barkley's younger, so those are the types of deals that you can get done, and you should be aiming to get done. Number two, just talked about him, Jonathan Taylor. And, I tweet a lot of jokes about Jonathan Taylor being Trent Richardson. I don't actually think he's going to be Trent Richardson. I think he's just very slow to develop. I still believe in Jonathan Taylor. I've been seeing some polls recently on Twitter where, it's like Jonathan Taylor or like 2 second round picks. And it's like, only 2-1 in favor of Jonathan Taylor. Like if this is like reality, you should be going out and throwing out offers for Jonathan Taylor right now. And I think if I'm on rebuilding teams, I'm definitely grabbing. He's still a 21-year-old rookie. He was still a top 24 running back before last week. Understandably, the trend is trending down for him, so it's not that great. But we kind of saw this with Melvin Gordon. People bring up that comparison as well in terms of just being slow to adjust into the league. And I think there could definitely be some case of that. Now, will Jonathan Taylor be Saquon Barkley? No, he won't be, even though people try to make him like that. He just will never be Saquon Barkley. But I do think this is a decent viable opportunity for a 21-year-old stud running back with an opportunity going forward. Number three, Cam Akers. He is the other guy that I think we should be exploring, acquiring, and definitely someone I'm going to be trying to acquire. He's obviously also disappointed so far, but I think what we need to remember is I think he was starting to really take over that role before he got hurt. And then he came back and obviously saw some like pretty limited action and still seeing limited action. But if I'm actually comparing to like what Cam Akers has done with his touches compared to what Darrell Henderson has done with his touches, I still truly believe this, that Cam Akers is the better running back and he will take over that backfield sooner rather than later. Darrell Henderson has been pretty good from a stats comparison perspective. If we look at the advanced metrics of like yards created, forced tackles missed, he's more or less just taken what's given to him. Don't get me wrong, like he's looked pretty explosive and he's definitely looked better than I thought he would at this point in the season. But I do still bet on the talent of Cam Akers running out. And what we've seen with that Rams running game is there is definitely a valuable piece to be had for whoever eventually takes over that backfield. And I bet you can get Cam Akers for super super cheap right now. Something like a late first will definitely get it done. But I think you could probably even get him for like a second plus a little piece or something like that. You can probably use one of the rookie wide receivers even to get him if you wanted to. But he's also just another 21-year-old young running back with prototypical size, has 3-down skill set, and is still learning the game, man. What we thought about him was true coming in. I thought he was super raw and he's going to take time to develop. The bad part is he had to deal with injury and COVID in terms of like being prepared for the season. But I think going into 2021, he is going to be the back to own there, similar to J.K. Dobbins, who also I was very high on. I don't have him on the buy list here because he's probably still very expensive because most people believe, as I did, most people expected him to take 2021. So there really isn't that much of a value change. But for Cam Akers, I think a lot of us expect him to take over right away. Obviously hasn't done that, so he's disappointed. And there's definitely a room for you to acquire there. And he's not someone that's going to put up a ton of points, at least early on in the season. If he does, by then your team would have already made the playoffs, so those points probably don't count for anything anyways if you play in a potential points for system like I do in most of my leagues. So he's just a really really great asset to acquire, and I think he can be had for super 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 cheap right now. And then the next bucket of assets I want to talk about is just the rookie wide receivers. Like this has been, there's no Julio Jones here, there's no AJ Greens in this class yet, but what we do have is an incredibly deep and highly talented group of guys. And it's never a bad idea to buy high on a high performing and early in their career rookie wide receiver. Right. So CeeDee Lamb obviously exploded out the gate, has taken a bit of a step back with Dak Prescott gone, but we fully believe Dak's going to come back. If not on the Cowboys, he's going to go somewhere else, but like they're going to get someone better than Andy Dalton and Gilbert and whoever else they were trotting out there. Benny DiNucci, people were like praising for whatever reason at some point. But so Lamb, still expensive, but definitely more attainable now. So I would definitely be acquiring Lamb. If you are on a rebuilding roster, you have like vets like Allen Robinson, you have guys like Keenan Allen who are studs. We'll talk about later on. I would explore moving them for Lamb plus. You might even be able to get a plus. If you can't, I would move him straight up as well because what he's done has been incredible. Justin Jefferson, again, just historic production at this rookie in this rookie wide receiver class. He's been fantastic. T. Higgins, my boy, my favorite, my personal favorite, been standing for him for a long time. Had to defend him against Nick and Noah, but he's proven to be a top wide receiver in this class. He's got the size, he's got the finesse, he's got everything, man. I mean, I think I compared him most closely to like an Alshon Jeffrey in his prime back when he was playing the Chicago Bears, and their play styles are very similar in terms of their ability to jump up and moss people. He's really, really good at high pointing the ball. He's the prototypical X size, and him and Tyler Boyd are going to be good for a really long time, right? Him and Tyler Boyd. Boyd is going to be like the discount Robert Woods that we'll always get every single year, but T. Higgins is going to have that potential to be like that true alpha wide receiver one, especially once AJ Green is gone. Him being attached to Joe Burrow makes him really, really attractive to me personally. I think he can be had at a very reasonable price. I already have him as a top 15 dynasty wide receiver. I don't think most people are there yet. So again, if you're on a rebuilding roster and you have some of these like older vets, guys like Devontae Adams, guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, I would explore trading down. I love trading down, and it might look stupid now because people are like, well, why are you giving up like a stud top 5 lock wide receiver or top 3 wide receiver for a younger guy? But you can get something like T. Higgins plus a first, right? And that first can turn into another T. Higgins, like we talked about last week. This class is full of stud wide receivers as well coming in 2021. So you're making those moves and thinking ahead, man. We're playing chess, not fucking checkers on this channel, all right, guys? We're always thinking a step ahead, and trading down at the wide receiver position is one of the easiest ways to do it, in my opinion, because the wide receiver group is so close and the scoring differential is really just not that big. So whenever you can trade down in a particular asset class, it's good. It's good for you, man. And if Calvin Ridley comes back and he continues the ball, for example, I would explore trading like Calvin Ridley for T. Higgins plus, right? These are the types of moves that will set you up down the line. And another guy I want to talk about is Jaylen Rager. Now, he got the injury bug, obviously. He was looking great in training camp. He looked good in his first game. And I have no doubts that Jaylen Rager would also be balling out right now had he been able to play a full season. Looking at what Travis Fulgham has been able to do, no disrespect to Travis Fulgham. I think he's been a really good player. He's having an incredible breakout of sorts as well. But I can only imagine what Jaylen Rager would also be doing in a similar type of starting role for that team. I think getting that chemistry with Carson Wentz would have been big. But, the silver lining in all this year is that we're going to be able to get Jaylen Rager for pretty good prices. And I don't know if you're going to be able to get Jaylen Rager from a Jaylen Rager truther, someone like Noah or myself, for too cheap, but I'm sure you can probably grab him for a 2021 first. And if you can, that's a move I would definitely make because he's already got the draft capital, he's already got the landing spot, and we already know he's got the talent. So he's someone that I'm definitely targeting a lot in my rebuilding rosters. So those that's the elite crop of rookie wide receivers, and then you got guys like Chase Claypool as well, who's been balling out. Someone that I'm also interested in acquiring for sure. But yeah, just rookie wide receiver, man. Young producing rookie wide receivers, their price is like very, very sticky going forward, right? If you look at guys like AJ Brown, look at the DK Metcalf, look at even the Terry McLaurins, like these are guys that have been rising in value ever since they stepped on the field. And it's because they produce early, and that is a great indication for success. So if you have that married with a great collegiate profile, where they also produce early in college, that is the nuts, man. That is a stone cold nuts for Dynasty. And Higgins, Lamb, Jefferson all have that in spades. I truly believe Rager will get there as well. And then another guy who I also really love is Laviska Shenault. He can be had for definitely a lot cheaper than some of the other guys just because he's been put in a little bit of a worse situation. But fear not, man, because next year, Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be in a position to pick a quarterback most likely. And if they can land a Justin Fields plus Laviska plus Chark plus J-Rob the God, it's fucking wheels up. So make sure you hop in on this train and grab those early producing rookie wide receivers. And if you like Brandon Ayuk, if you like Michael Pittman, whoever your flavor is, these are just the guys that I really, really like, and I have no problems buying high on them, right? And I talk about buying high and profiting. I think you can still buy high on these guys because I don't think many of them will cost you more than 2 firsts. I don't think any of them will cost you 2 firsts, to be honest. So you're looking at like a first plus, and eventually their value is going to be like 2 to 3 firsts. Like when you look at the AJ Browns and the DK Metcalfs, like they're moving into that territory in terms of their career trajectory. So you want to get on the train now. It might sound expensive, and I know people laugh about someone ranking like T. Higgins is in the top 12 dynasty wide receivers, and they're like, okay, now it's time to sell. I truly don't think so. because his upside is not top 12. His upside eventually 3 years down the line could be like top 5, right? And that's what you're aiming for. You don't have to pay that price yet, but that's where I believe they're going. So make sure you get them. And then obviously always try and acquire rookie picks, first and seconds. I will say something though. People often ask me like, hey, should I trade one of my rookie first for 2 seconds? Because I heard the class is super deep and those second round picks are going to be valuable. My response is always this: you do not give up a rookie first for seconds at this time in the year, right? If you're on the clock, trade back. That option will always be there. You will always be able to trade a first for multiple seconds, but you will not always be able to trade 2 seconds for a first. So it's like a one-way street. So that's why I think firsts are so valuable, and people love to talk about like second round picks and how deep they are and get as many of them as you can. And I agree, right? You should get second round picks, but not at the expense of giving up a first, because if you look at the value trajectory of the first round pick, the first round pick's value will be growing exponentially compared to a second round pick. And like if a second round pick grows like this, a first round pick grows like that, right? So it'll always have a steeper slope, and the gap in value between them will widen between now and the draft. So you can always capitalize on that later on. There's no need to prepay for a second round pick now. That is not the optimal strategy. And then the second thing I want to talk about is the 2022 picks. And I know people are like fawning over 2021. But this is also the time where if your league allows you to trade 2 years in advance, no one's thinking 2 years ahead, man. And if you're in a true rebuild, you have a 2-year plan set ahead. You can acquire picks 2 years out for way cheaper than you can acquire picks 1 year out. And that is I don't even know if it's a cheat code, because to me it's fucking obvious. But the reason why the 2 years out picks are cheaper, rightfully so, is because you don't get any production for them for 2 years, right? But if you're rebuilding, you don't care about production. Production is a variable that gets completely removed from your process. So what you only care about is value accrual, right? And that's what I talk about all the time. Accrue value on your rosters when you're in a rebuild. Do not care about starting lineups. Do not care about production. If anything, you want as little production as possible. So that's why I am actually like in leagues where I'm full blown rebuild. I was like acquiring 22 picks in startup drafts because I know people are giving them up for cheap, and they're worth less now. But what's guaranteed to happen every single year is those pick values will increase come draft time, the closer they get to draft time. So right now, for example, if you use trade calculator like DTC, for example, right? A 2021st right now, middling first is probably worth like 16 to 20 points, call it, right? And a 2022 first is probably worth like 10 to 12 points, right? So like 50% less. But what we know is come this time next year, that 2022 first will be worth whatever the 2021 first is worth now. And then 1 year after that, the 2021 first will be worth what the 2020 first were worth this year during draft time, which is like 25 points. So you're basically going to get that doubling in value, or whatever, 50-60% increase in value locked in. Guaranteed value accrual is what you want on your rebuilding roster. So acquire those 2022 picks. And people say, are worried. They sometimes message me and say, hey, Mike, are you worried that the 2022 class doesn't look as deep, doesn't look as talented as the 2020 or the 2021? No, I'm not worried, because it's 2 years out. We don't fucking know how talented or how deep the class is. 1, 2, I think the class is actually pretty good, especially from the QB perspective. It's a pretty deep class. And you do have a couple stud wide receivers that have already emerged and locked themselves in. And then you do have some pretty interesting running back prospects as well. You have Breece Hall, who everyone loves, and you have Isaiah Spiller, who's been fucking my guy since, I don't know, a long time. So that's someone that I'm putting my stamp of approval on, is Isaiah Spiller, 2022. Remember the goddamn name. He's in a prototypical size. He's got the receiving chops. He's got the skills. He's got the moves. He is going to be a stud. So lock that into your brain. So there's already studs available. And then who knows what's going to happen in 2021, right? More guys are going to emerge. Every year, more guys emerge. And that's one thing that's almost as assuredly possible as rookie picks guaranteed to increase in value, is more guys will emerge and the value of those picks will increase. So do not worry about how you think or how someone on Twitter thinks deep the talent pool is for 2022. I promise you this: those picks you get now will increase in value between now and then. That is a guaranteed result. No doubt about it. All right. So don't worry about if you can't acquire 2021 first because everyone's hanging on to them. Move forward and take those 2022 picks and acquire as many of them as you want. Because I'm telling you right now, one of my leagues where I'm a rebuilder, I have like 3 2021 first and like 5 or 6 2021 seconds, but I have like 5 or 6 2022 first already. And I got them for super cheap. And I know they're going to double in value. So again, it's just a portfolio of investments when you're rebuilding. Just look at them as assets and eliminate assets from your roster that will not increase in value over the next 1 to 2 years. And we'll talk about some of those assets now. On the flip side, if you're a contender, these are the guys I think you should be going after, right? Number 1 on the list, I don't know why he's so disrespected, but he is hella disrespected. It's freaking Keenan Allen. He is balling out. Justin Herbert single-handedly making him another top 5 wide receiver for the season and probably rest of the season as well, right? And if you are a contender, what are you focused on right now the most? The playoffs, right? You're focused on the playoffs. You're focused on championship week. You're focused on semifinals week. That's what you're looking forward towards. Because if you're a contender, you should already have playoffs locked up, right? And if you don't have playoffs locked up, you're probably not a freaking contender. So I talk about pretenders all the time. Really evaluate your things. Really evaluate your teams. Go back and look at one of my episodes in terms of how I evaluate whether a team is a true contender or a fucking pretender. But if you are a true contender, playoffs are absolutely locked up. So you're looking to head to the playoffs. And Keenan Allen in the playoffs gets Atlanta Falcons. He's gonna get fucking 20 targets, like 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's just a lock, right? You know, Austin. The one worry about Keenan Allen is Austin Eckler coming back. If you look at the splits with Keenan Allen, with and without Austin Eckler, same with Melvin Gordon. The receiving volume is definitely a little bit worrisome, but he is a locked-in number 1 there, and Justin Herbert looks like a fucking god. So there's plenty to go around. Keenan Allen should be your number 1, number 2, number 3 highest focus as a dynasty contender to acquire because he's 28 years old. And when wide receivers are 28 years old, freaking dynasty players avoid them like the plague, right? And if I'm like I said, if I'm a rebuilding team, I'm definitely dumping him. So I do want him off my team. So if you can find someone like that who is a rebuilder who has Keenan Allen on their team, you should be targeting that guy. Now, if they're a contender, good luck getting him because the contender's trying to win, and Keenan Allen playoff schedule is just too juicy to pass up. And Justin Herbert, what he's doing with that offense. So you got to hope he's sitting on a rebuilder's team in order to acquire him. But if you can acquire him, you should absolutely acquire him. He's worth a first at least. In one QB leagues, worth more than a first. In single QB, probably worth a mid first. Maybe even you might have to just pay a bit more. But as I always say, man, winning championships, freaking Drake memes, winning trades. All right. So we're focused on winning in this part of the segment because we're talking about contenders. So hopefully you're paying attention because we're trying to get that motherfucking W for y'all. Keenan Allen, number 1 target. Make sure you get him. Number 2 on the list, Robert Woods, man. Bobby Trees, Mr. Consistent. I loved him coming into the season as a draft pick for any contending team. I drafted him in a lot of leagues because he was going in the 7th round, which made no sense. He is He's as stable as they come in terms of a middling wide receiver 2 with weekly wide receiver 1 upside. He has been doing pretty damn well. I actually really like Jared Goff too, but more importantly, let's look at his playoff schedule. He gets New England Patriots, New York Jets, Seattle Seahawks. Now, depending on whether or not Gilmore plays, that first week might be a bit tough, but Robert Woods also gets a lot of rushing work and gets a lot of goal line carries, actually. So that's the upside he gets there in terms of the floor as a wide receiver. He gets those extra touches. I don't know why they love using him, but he's been pretty damn successful. So I love that for him. But after that, week 15, week 16, New York Jets and Seattle. And honestly, like I said, if you are a true contender, top 1 to 2 team, you're going to get a bye in that first week anyways. So it's not that big of a deal. But then he hits a money spot in terms of New York Jets. They cannot defend anyone in terms of wide receivers. So you know Jared Goff can go off there. And then Seattle, literally the worst defense I have ever seen. The worst pass defense of all time. Okay. And the stats support that. If you look at the amount of yardage and points are given up, it's very comparable to, I think, the 2011 Aaron Rodgers led Green Bay Packers defense, which was also just abysmal. So in championship week, Bobby Woods is going to win people leagues, man. So go and acquire him. Pay a first if you have to, but I think you might even be able to get him for a couple seconds because, like I said, he's also on the older side. But the good thing with Keenan Allen and Robert Woods, they're not one-year rentals, right? Like I said, Keenan Allen's career has single-handedly been extended by at least 3 years by Justin Herbert, and he will be a wide receiver 1, low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 for the next 3 to 4 years. And if you're playing as a contender, that's all you need. That's a great window to play within. Same thing with Robert Woods, right? Robert Woods going to play with Jared Goff, another young quarterback, Sean McVay. He's got the chemistry. He is, in my opinion, the best wide receiver to own on that team because he's flexible. He's not just a slot receiver, and they are he can move all over the formation. And they use him in all different types of ways, right? So these are 2 guys that will be on your roster and be potential wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 1s for the next 3 to 4 years. So they're not one-year rentals. So don't hesitate to pay a first-round pick or maybe even a little bit more to grab one of these guys. Obviously on a top end first, right? But middling, late first, and super flex formats definitely viable. Number 3. If you guys follow me, this will probably come as a shock to you because I've never been a Derrick Henry fan. But I do think if you are a contender, you should be making moves for Derrick Henry. I've been trying to do that in a couple of my leagues. Haven't worked out yet, but I'm going to keep trying. And here's why. He gets Jacksonville, Detroit, Green Bay Packers, 3 of the stone worst running defenses in the league. Positive game scripts in store for all of them except maybe the Green Bay Packers. but it doesn't matter because Green Bay Packers cannot defend the run at all, anyways. But that's your championship week, right? Like Derrick Henry is going to win some people championships. And if you look at Derrick Henry, second half Derrick Henry is God mode. He cannot be stopped. He adopted all the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, going back a couple of years. So that's going to be a bomb. That's going to be a bomb right there. He's going to definitely go smash. The one downside is they lost Taylor Lewan, and you kind of see some of the impacts there on not just Derrick Henry, but on the offense as a whole. He was a big piece of that offense. Derrick Henry running off of the left side with Taylor Lewan leading the way was how he got it done a lot of the time. But those defenses freaking stink, and Derrick Henry is still a really good football player. And he is on the older side, right? So he's going to be 27 in January. So that means basically nearing 28 come next season. But if you're a contending team, again, championship, Drake memes, trades, okay? Championships over trades all the time. So you're going to probably ride Derrick Henry in the sunset, and that's totally okay because he's probably got another couple of years. He started off his career on the lighter side. So he doesn't have that touch volume in the tread in his tires yet. So I do think he's worth an inquisition. And if you are a contending team, you should absolutely be getting him, right? And the last guy I want to talk about is Aaron Fricken Jones. I haven't heard too much talk about him, but he was letting it up early on in the season. He got hurt, obviously, had a calf injury, came back last week, still put up respectable numbers on limited touches. But Aaron Jones is a stud. And I know people are concerned about him because he doesn't have a contract yet. I personally believe that Aaron Jones will get signed before this year is done because AJ Dillon has not done jack shit. He sucks. Jamal Williams actually been pretty decent. But Aaron Jones is what really makes that. Aaron Jones plus Devontae Adams is what really makes that offense go ahead. And, Matt LaFleur has really shown that he does love to rely on the running game. And Aaron Jones is a top 5 back in the NFL. He's unstoppable on the goal line. Freaking regression drones are going to be talking about regression for Aaron Jones the next 3 to 4 years and just look hella dumb. So I am all in on Aaron Jones. But specifically for this year, again, it comes back to the playoff schedule. Detroit, Carolina, Tennessee. Another stone 3 worst schedule. Tennessee has a great schedule against the run, but they cannot defend the run at all. Gio Bernard looking like freaking running back one, Sacrum Barkley out there against them. Anyone can just run on them. You can run train on Tennessee, and they absolutely cannot stop you at all. So again, and we saw what Aaron Jones did to Detroit, put up a 45 burger the first time around. Carolina, again, one of the stoneworst defenses against the run. So positive game scripts for them in all 3 of them, which means heavy run scripts, which means more touchdown opportunities. And we know what Aaron Jones can do in the touchdown department. I would not be shocked if he left those 3 weeks with like 4 to 6 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns might even be generous. If he left with 6 touchdowns, I wouldn't even be surprised. That's how good Aaron Jones can be in the playoffs for you. So make sure you get him. And he can be had because again, he's a 25-year-old running back. Most people are, especially if they're on a rebuilding team. Although if you had Aaron Jones, I'm not sure how you are rebuilding, but if he is on a rebuilding team, I would absolutely pay one of the young stud running backs, someone like a J.K. Dobbins for him. It hurts to let go of J.K. Dobbins and know what he can do going forward. But again, we're trying to win championships right now, and Aaron Jones absolutely helps you do that. So again, just to recap, if you're a rebuilder, guys should target Sacrum Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, rookie wide receiver studs like Lamb, Higgins, Jefferson, Rager, Laviska, and then obviously rookie first and seconds, but more importantly, 2022 rookie first, because this is the time where you can get a discount on them. If you're a contender on the flip side, guys you should be going after and hounding for these trades is Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones. These are the studs you want to go for. Now, there's also like obviously like fringe and flex plays and stuff like that, but that's not important because those are not the moves that are going to win you the championship. But guys like Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, I honestly believe these are the difference makers. And when the championship week comes, you could be saying like, I won the championship because I made a move for one of these guys. And it might cost you a pretty penny, but that's okay. Because like we said, again and again and again, winning championships, Drake memes, winning trades all day, every day. And the last piece I want to cover a little bit, I'll probably get more into this next week. Let me know in the comments if it's something you guys are interested in. But I'm already starting to prep for 2021, right? Because I play in Devy leagues and stuff like that. So there's a lot of free data out there available. So I think Sports Reference, the NFL version, if you just type in like a player and stats. So for example, if I type in De'Ami Brown, my guy, that's going to be my guy. I put the stamp on him a while ago. So you guys know I have freaking receipts on that one. But if you type in De'Ami Brown college stats, www.sports-reference.com. It's like the college version of Pro Sports Reference for the NFL stats. But you can already get a lot of these stats especially for the wide receivers. This is when I start doing work, right? You start looking at because if they're being good declaring for the 2021 draft, you want to look at what they did in their freshman season and in their sophomore season. Look at their, I'm calculating market share percentages. I'm calculating dominator ratings. I'm calculating yards per team pass attempt. A lot of these advanced types of metrics I can cover a little bit. I'll probably do a segment on it, maybe another episode, just talk about each metric, what they mean, how you calculate them, and how you like basically build your spreadsheet in your database. I think I'm going to do that actually for a future episode. Let me know in the comments if that's something you're interested in, because if it is, I'll definitely put that in the bank. But you can already start looking and doing some research on these guys, right? And I talked a little bit about some of my favorite guys last week. You have the clear-cut tier one guys. You have the Jamar Chases, the Rondale Moores, and the Rashad Bateman's, right? But I think close behind him, you got guys like Seth Williams that not very many people are talking about him, and then my guy De'Ami Brown, who I don't think anyone, like, definitely not enough people are talking about him. I know some people are talking about him, but he should be in the conversation for top 5 wide receiver, in my opinion, along with guys like Jalen Waddle and Seth Williams, but he just simply isn't. And he's balling out of control. He balled out again today with Sam Howell. Again, Sam Howell, 2022, QB1, in my opinion. You got him and Spencer Rattler. You also got King Keaton Slovis as well. So that's why I said, like, get those 2022 first, because there is going to be talent coming in. Do not worry about it. There's always talent churning through, man. This is a very talented sport. It's a very talented country. It's a very talented, very talented collegiate landscape, right? So there's always going to be talent. So don't worry about that. All right. So back to what I was saying before, though, like, this is when you can kind of start like collecting stats for at least, prior seasons, and you can get a look into what they're doing this season, right? Like, how are some of those top guys performing right now in terms of their market share of teams' yards, their market share of teams' touchdowns, their market share of the team's offense. These are all things you can already start doing. So right now I'm already looking into this stuff so that I can bring this content back to you guys and benefit you, so you are one step ahead of the competition, staying ahead of the game, staying as fucking wolves, man. We got to stay with the wolf pack and get it, man, because that's what we're all about here, man. Getting W's. I want to add W's to your win column. I want to add value to your rosters. I want to add value to your dynasty teams, and that's what I'm here for. So just a little bit of insight into what I'm doing right now. And, I'll probably dig into it a little bit more going forward, because this episode's already getting a little bit long and it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to edit. So I'm going to cut off now. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Hope you guys liked what I covered. Now, hopefully after this, because the trade deadline's coming up, get out there and try and make those moves, man. And just don't try and lowball people. Just go and get them, pay the right price, grab these guys. It's going to be worth it for you in the end, in order to get that championship, get that trophy, get that ring, get whatever it is you have in your home league, get that money, man. Just get that bread. But more importantly, man, just get that pride, get that W, man. W, pride in your pocket, in your league, everywhere, man. Just like Jameis says, man, eat those W's up. And hopefully you guys found that helpful. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you thumbs up. Please follow me on Twitter. Engage with me. That's where I'm at most of the time. I'm always on Twitter, talking to fans, talking to people, just engaging back and forth. You want to talk shit? Just make sure you can handle it on the way back, so I'm going to spit back and fire back at you. If you want to engage in discussions, make sure you bring the facts, man. Do some of your own research, man. I love when people prove me wrong. If you show me something I don't know, I'm always open to take that in. All right, but just make sure you come prepared. Come prepared with the heat, because I'm going to be spitting that heat right back. All right. So again, thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the segment. It's a little bit long. I apologize ahead of time, but let me know in the comments about those things I talked about. If you want to see me talk about some of those metrics, what they mean, how to prepare them, how to calculate them, let me know, and I'll bring that through next week. If you want me to talk about more 2021 rookie content, you want to talk about Devy content, let me know in the comments, man, because I got stuff prepared, man. There's definitely going to be a lot of 2021 stuff coming your way, because this is about the point in the season where my contenders are basically good to go, and I'm looking for rebuilders. So I'm trying to do research. I'm already past 2020, man. We're, like Bill says, like the great Bill Belichick says, man, we're on to the next thing. I'm on 2021. I'm already on to 2022. So make sure you come along for the ride, man. All right. Peace out.